Welcome to the American Institute of Healthcare Professionals and the American Academy of Grief Counseling's video on multicultural counseling with Arab Americans. And this is a continuing series of videos that look at multicultural competency in regards to counseling with minorities or other ethnic groups within the United States that counselors may have to work with. So let's take a look at a portrait of Arab Americans and Islam for many of you that might not be as familiar. Within the United States, Arab Muslims represent between 1.7 to 5.1 million Americans living here as citizens or living here on visas themselves. Some Muslims are more religious than others. It's unfair to characterize every Muslim one meets as very religious. Just like variations within other creeds, some individuals are more secular and some are more religious. In addition, Islam itself means submission. It means submission to God for the most part. Islam, ironically, shares the same God as Judaism and Christianity. Both, both share, all three, I should say, share the God of Abraham. Whether you're a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, the same God that is in the Torah is the God of all three religions. However, Islam does profess the Prophet Muhammad, who is not part of Judaism or Christianity, and his work, the Quran, which Muslims believe was given to him by the angel Gabriel. Islam has 5 pillars, which involve alms, fasting, prayer, faith, and if able, the pilgrimage to Mecca. Imams are the prayer leaders within the Muslim community, and mosques are referred to the places of worship. Islam, like any religion, has its bad and good characters throughout history, and radical elements, just like in any other group, exist, but they do not reflect what the core of the religion is itself. Now, many Muslim Americans, Arab Americans face challenges as being minorities. Obviously, one of the biggest one is the labeling of them as terrorists since 9/11, obviously. Many have problems when it comes to individuals who might look at Arabs as only terrorists or enemies of the United States, and this can occur at any place or at any time. Because of this, integration can be difficult when Arab American populations are not able to show their patriotism. Sometimes some might feel the challenge to do that depending on their acculturation levels. Many communities look to show that they are part of the United States through having, just like many Christian institutions, having their own schools, their own hospitals, and sharing with their places of worship with others, getting to know them within the community. Again, Islam has many unique beliefs, and some of them cause frictions, though, with secular America. And some of these involve the roles of women in Islam, as well as certain moral things that are considered to be acceptable, roles of women within business, also roles of homosexuals within the various acceptance of secular life. So there is a Western secularism versus Islamic religious belief that can exist. Also, there can be a difference in Sharia law versus Western law. While the Sharia law is never implemented within the United States, many of the Sharia laws concerning divorce or other elements can sometimes come into conflict with Western laws. There is also conflict between Muslim families due to different levels of acculturation. Some Muslim families can be more religious, while others are more assimilated, and some may even be more secular. And this can cause problems, especially with Muslim families and Arab American families trying to maintain identity. Because within the Muslim family structure and the Arab family structure, there is a huge emphasis on respect to authority and also dependence upon the family. So, with this obligation to respect elders, many younger Muslims, as well as second generation Arab Americans, might be more secular, and they might have different moral ideas, and they might have to have a closet lifestyle when not around when around their elders, and then express themselves differently in other places. And of course, this can cause a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression itself. Again, I mentioned the labeling of many Arab Americans and Muslim Americans as terrorists. So there is a challenge, I think, for some, maybe not all, but for some to present themselves as American, to try to prove this. And sometimes this can become a big issue, especially with the U.S. foreign policy on Israel and the two-state solution with Palestine, especially in the recent war between Israel and Hamas, and how the American government has not done nearly enough to cease the suffering of the Palestinians within the Gaza Strip. And this might cause some type of dissidence within many Arab Americans of how their government is treating people from their own homeland. And many of them still have family in Palestine itself. So when counseling Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, it's important to be aware of many of these things. Many prefer to counsel with those of their own creed, of their own culture, but others, sometimes to avoid shame, would rather speak to an individual that they is not part of their religion or not part of their culture itself. So it can be a little bit of both, although there is a big distinction between Islamic culture and also sometimes Western psychology. In regards to grief and loss, many Arab Americans find solace instead within the community before they seek out counseling. And because of their very strong religious nature, they believe loss and everything is part of God's ultimate will, Allah. And in the end, everything will become what is it supposed to be, and that God is all love despite pain and despite suffering. It's very important for counselors to be aware of various Muslim burial processes, as well as the role of crying or not crying in some particular communities. Many say crying is permitted. Others within the community say crying is a sign of not accepting Allah's will. So it all depends on the severity and also the cultural area that one is in. But there are some that go between the two extremes. Counselors hence need to be aware of also, as I mentioned, levels of acculturization and an independence upon younger Muslim Americans or Arab Americans in regards to their family, as well as, again, migrant persecution. Counselors need, very importantly, to dismiss biases that they might have about the authoritative structure of Islam if that goes against their more liberal Western-minded views, especially in regard to views of women within the faith and community, as well as views on morality, especially sexual morality and homosexuality. Counselors need to put those views to the side when working with Muslim or Arab Americans. So those are some things to consider when working with Arab Americans, and also some of the various stressors that Arab and Muslim Americans can face. Below is our grief counseling certification and link. And for those of you who earn the grief counseling certification, you can also earn a specialty focus in grief diversity. Our phone number is 330-652-7776, and our email is info@AIHCP.org. Our resource is the Peterson Text Counseling Across Cultures. Please subscribe to our channel as well and like this video. And also, I'd like to thank you for listening and have a good day.